It is 7:02. I'm going to call the Board of Selectmen meeting for Newcastle, Maine to order. The first order of business is we're going to go straight to amendments to the agenda. Does anyone have any amendments to the agenda as presented? Raise your hand. No? Seeing none, we'll move on. Minutes. Item 4.1 and 4.2, minutes from March 9th and March 13th. Do we have a motion by a show of hand to move the minutes? Brian moves. Do we have a second? Wanda seconds. All right. Do we have any discussion about the minutes as presented? Joel, hold on a second. Yes.
It says $285 a year on the 6.2 construction access agreement, Mills Road property. Oh wait, no, that is. Never mind. Nope, we're good.
All good?
Yeah, we're good. Never mind.
Great. All right. Does anybody else have anything on the minutes? All right. So this is going to be the first time we do this. We're going to have to vote by roll call. So I'm going to unmute all, and I'll call out individual selectmen's names, and all you have to do is respond yes or no. All right. So I call the vote on the minutes for both March 9th and March 13th. Brian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wanda?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Minutes approved. Going back onto mute. All right. Do we have any public comments for items not on the agenda? Tor, you're the only member of the public. Are you good? All right. Moving on to new business, Academy Hill project borrowing RFP. Before we get to, or as part of discussing that, I think we have our road commissioner, Seth Hagar, with us by voice. And I think if we could get some comments from him regarding project status, timing of stuff, we could then maybe have a little bit more of an informed discussion about the borrowing end of the project. So I'm going to unmute Seth and welcome him to the meeting. Hello, Seth.
Hey guys, how are you?
We're good, thank you. So maybe you could just give us an update on what you're thinking about time-wise for the Lincoln Academy Road reconstruction project. You know, I know everything's blown out of the water, and we haven't heard from you about what your schedule is. So take it away.
Yeah, no, it's a great time to give an update of where we stand. Unfortunately, some of the things you can't see on the surface are being done. We've had our 3D modeling complete, so we have a real actual model to work with now. That's all done. Catch basins have been submitted to the engineer for review and approved. They're currently in production as we speak. We did have a phone call with them later today, and unfortunately, I stepped out and I didn't get the update, but we did touch base with the manufacturer today, and they are working on them. I just don't have the exact date when they're going to be all completed, but they're in the works. Have had contact with the granite company as well. They're, similar to other producers, got a limited workforce and what have you, but assurances are made that we should be able to get product for that without any real hitch. Just may not be able to get the quantity all at once that we want. So it's going to be some logistics on our end. Shouldn't be a problem. We have tentatively scheduled right now for the end of April, first part of May, weather depending, to get going. We're looking at phasing the project into 3 separate phases, approximately 1,000-foot sections. We're still hashing out, to be honest with you, whether we're going to start at the top or the bottom, but regardless, it's going to be in 1,000-foot segments, like I said, thereabouts. And the goal is going to be to complete the base pavement in those sections and then progress to the next section. So what we're not going to have, or our goal is to not have, is a section of the road that's torn up for prolonged periods of time without any hot top on it. So we'll basically do the reconstruction in one section. We'll get the base hot top down, even if the sidewalk's not complete, get the base hot top down so that the traveling public has a surface to work off of, go to the next section, progress in the same manner, and go to the third and final section. And then, anything that needs to be finished after that, we'll work our way back down through and finish it. But in the large scheme of things, that's overall the general scope of where we want to be. Hopefully the weather works with us. Right now, all indications are that asphalt plants are going to be up and going come the middle of April. We've had several conversations with producers as far as that goes. Everything is still on track with that. We've had conversations with MDOT as well, as far as just wondering if the state was going to do anything shutdown wise on their construction season. And everything that we've been told as of recent is that everything's a full go. In fact, to be honest with you, part of the conversation we had today with the MDOT was that they were potentially going to look to add some projects while things were down. That they had some stuff that they wanted to get out, and it was a good opportunity. So I think as of right now, we're still going to be titled as necessary infrastructure, and everything is going to be still going forward. So I know all of the other people in our field are moving forward with their projects as well. For example, the paving project over on Route 1, Bath, Brunswick, they're getting ready to kick off over there again. So as far as things on our end goes, everything's normal to the extent that we have workforce and everybody stays healthy, that type of thing. But as far as material goes, I'm pretty confident that we should be able to get going here without any big glitches.
Okay, great. And just real quick before I open it up for other questions, could you just repeat one more time that time frame or window you were thinking about getting started on the project?
Yeah, I'm looking at the end of April. I'm somewhere from the mid of April to the end of April, first part of week of May is where I'm looking to try to land stuff there. There'll be some subtle things happening prior to that. We'll start getting some construction signs up and doing some site layout and small things like that. But as far as big, like, oh, geez, they ripped up this whole thing today, that's where I'm looking at as far as time frame goes. Okay,
great. So at this time, does anyone else from the board have any questions? Wanda, I'm going to unmute you. I'm going to leave Seth open. So there you are, Wanda, go for it.
Thanks. So my understanding was back before I even became a selectman, one of the last meetings I went to is that the lights in the granite was still up for we hadn't really decided exactly what we were going to do with that was going to be a decision that we were going to make in the spring. Am I wrong in thinking that?
Obviously I will defer 100% answer to John, but my understanding is that the options that were selected and built into the budget are in fact inclusive of those items. That is what the project is based on, and that's what we've ordered for materials.
I think if we go back to the minutes, I think we'll find, and I don't know when it was, I think in October, that we said that we wanted to budget for the whole thing, but we still had options that we could decide on before we started live with the project. Anybody else remember that?
Those options, we did have other options. There may be some issues of misunderstanding. There were other options that were part of the project. Those options were, for example, the section of sidewalk in front of the church, the section of sidewalk by the town office. There was some pedestrian improvements that was an option up by Lincoln Academy. Those options there are put into are part of the project, but subject to budgetary constraints. So those are the options that you have the ability to still manipulate. So for example, if we hit ledge in some part of the project and we have to expend funds to be able to get drainage in as a result of that ledge that was unknown, we have the ability to take one of those options, not do that options, and utilize those funds to get the core project, which was the base bid, to complete that using those funds. And those are the options that you have the ability to manipulate. And for that, we will hold off on providing those options until the end of or closer to the end of the project, so that we know where we stand budget-wise.
John, can you look back in the minutes tomorrow and just verify that? Because that's not what I remember.
Just a second.
Anybody else?
Yep, just a second, Wanda. All right, John, go for it. You're on.
Hi. So I remember some of this, and I remember there was some removal. There were lights. I think what I just was sent back and I saw an email that because we had talked about this. I think it was in December, as again after, and I'd sent an email. So I sent an email out to everyone, and basically what it says is that the contract that we signed basically calls on us to spend 1.7 million with Hager Enterprises, and what that does is that includes the Mills Road crossing, the shim on Academy Hill, which was already accomplished this winter or fall, the alternate one of the granite curbing, less 160 feet. So we cut out 160 feet of that, and a portion of the option for lighting, which includes the 9 bases and conduit for lighting, but we took out the light fixtures. So that's what was part of the contract that we signed in November. But we also talked about the fact that as things go along, there may be the need to look at the budget and adjust accordingly. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Seth, but is that what you're talking about in terms of that we may get into things and things may cost more and we may have to cut back? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes. The unforeseen stuff that we have that's below the ground that we may not be able to, know 100%. We did do borings, but ledge is a great example of something that is unknown, that in the event that we do have a placeholder in the bid for a small amount, and we do have a unit cost in the bid so that we know what the costs are per unit in the event that we need to deal with it. We just don't know the extent of how much if that becomes a problem. So therefore, we have those other options that are outside of the main project scope that we could potentially eliminate to keep us within the budget realm of where the town wants to be.
So I just want to interject real quick. One of the things that I remember about this conversation was that we pulled out some granite curbing, we pulled out some lights, we pulled out all the lights, I think, all the light fixtures, and all we had in there were the bases and the conduit, with the idea that if the project went well and we didn't encounter those, ledge and things like that, that there was the potential to add them back in towards the end. Is that what everyone else remembers as well?
Yes, that's what we have in there for a budget for numbers
Yeah.
as well.
All right, Joel, hold on, I'm gonna unmute you. Here you go. You're on.
All right. So I also think things changed a little bit from initial discussions when we originally went out to bid, got only one bid in return, which was from Hager Enterprises. There was a desire to go back out for another bid, and the contractor changed the bidding process in that whole thing. So that, I mean, the scope, the way the project was kind of set up changed at that point as well. And that's kind of how we had, that's what we asked for when we put it back out for that second bid process, and then still only got one bid. We had to change how it was done. I think that was part of the confusion. I did bring this up at a meeting following when we voted, when we all voted. I think Brian was absent, but Carolyn, Ben, Wanda, and myself were all there, and we voted to approve the 1.7 million contract. So I brought that up the next week just to clarify, make sure, because something someone said seemed to indicate that they didn't understand that. But I brought it up, we clarified it, and everyone was fine with it at that point. So that was in December, I think. So that's how I remember it.
All right, Wanda.
So yeah, I remember voting on the contract, but I also was at the meeting that we talked about that there was a couple of things like the granite curbing and the lighting that we had till spring to decide on. Just because we got the money for it didn't mean that we were going to do it. So that's what I assumed was still in the contract because we hadn't talked about it again. So I may have totally misunderstood things, but I feel like that's what was said back in the meeting, and I didn't hear anything different. So
why don't we ask John and Harriet to go back and review both video from those meetings and minutes from the meetings. And we'll come back at our next meeting and find out. Even if you begin work, in it sounds like a month, we're going to have at least one meeting in that time. Brian, are you? Yep, here you go. You're on.
Well, no, what it comes down to is you guys signed a contract, or we signed a contract with Hager's. It should have outlined the whole project in it. And if that's what was signed, that we're buying all the granite curbing and putting in the lights, that's a done deal. So I know I wasn't there when we signed the contract. So, and I do remember your conversation, Wanda, that we discussed before about pulling those out. But like Joel said, that changed and we went back out to bid for the second time and changed the bidding process. So, but the contract says that's what's there. And it sounds like Seth's already got it all in order. So he can't return it. I think we're eating it. That's what we're doing. Not what we wanted to do, but that's what we're doing. So.
There is, just for clarity, so that you folks do remember, yes, there was the original bid. The original bid was line item fashion. There was concerns from the residents that was not acceptable. So they did change the bid as a result of that. And we did go to a lump sum bid. The lump sum bid did include those items that were in the original. And that is what you folks have signed. That lump sum dollar amount does encompass the reduction in the granite, but still some granite curb, and the reduction of the lights, as John had indicated, but still running some conduit and stuff in the ground for future use.
Right.
At the same time, there was that same discussion about the lights for the town, and John's been, working on that project, and we backed the light fixtures out of the contract because we didn't know where that was going to be going, and if that might be able to provide us with another option, to get the light fixtures installed. But it made sense while the sidewalk and the road were completely torn up to put the conduit in and put in the the bases for the lights anyway, because doing it after the fact would cost way more money, and just having the infrastructure there just while the work was being done seemed to make sense. So I think at this time, what we really got to move on to is the discussion about borrowing the money, and we'll come back to this. John, if you can make sure on Harriet, make sure that this is added to unfinished business for our next selectmen's meeting. We'll continue the discussion about the actual project, but we need to get on to talking about how to fund it. So unless anybody has another question or something for Seth, let me know, or we're gonna let him go. Hold on, Brian, is that you? Hold on a second. Yeah.
Hey, Seth, I just had one more question. You think about closing the road completely during parts of the project, or are we always going to try to keep a lane open?
Nope, we'll have a lane open.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
perfect.
we'll have to alternate back and forth. But no, it's not in our plan to close the road. We're going to try to. I mean, there might be a couple of delays where we have to stop for a minute, here and there, that type of thing. But
Right.
Our plan will be to have alternating traffic.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So Seth, thank you very much for joining us. I think at this point we're all set. If you want to get going, you're welcome to stay. Either way, suit yourself. Thanks for coming, though.
Yeah, no, thanks, guys. Stay safe. And if you need anything, just please reach out, email, phone's always on. I know that's a little, may seem like it's harder to get a hold of people, but I mean, by all means, just give a jingle and we'll try to do what we can to assist in any way we can.
Sounds good. Thanks again, Seth. Have a good night. So knowing now what we know about the schedule of the timing of the beginning of the project and what's sort of happening at the local level and the economy, the question about funding for the project, how we're going to handle it. We've gone out to bid. We had 2 responses. John, can you just talk to us a little bit more about the 2 responses that we got? Because at the last selectmen's meeting, we had 1, but.
Right. Yeah. So basically what happened is we received another in the mail and it didn't get flagged as, I guess as a bid in the office. So it found its way to my desk Tuesday morning, which was about just a little bit too late to bring to the meeting, because I didn't know it existed, but it did. We had it. It should have been in the packet. So anyway, as soon as I got that, I scanned it in and obviously shared it with each of you via email, just so you were aware. Though you hadn't made a decision at that point, obviously I wanted to make sure you had it before you and you were aware that the first had also submitted a bid. And I think that for a number of different reasons, it should be considered, regardless of what was included. I think certainly their intent, and they had met their end of it, and it was in our mail on Monday. We just hadn't picked it up for a number of different things going on that day. So anyway, that puts us with two bids and two different offers, one from the first and one from DB&T. Do you want me to outline all of the particulars now, or what are you thinking, Ben?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do that, John, and then we'll bring it to a broader discussion. Okay.
So as you guys recall, the first bid we received or proposal was from Damascotta Bank and Trust. They offered, we specified we wanted two different numbers, a rate for a 7-year term and a rate for a 10-year term. Additionally, Ken Steele from DB&T contacted me right before, I think it was on the Friday before, and asked if we were interested in a drawdown, basically a line of credit, because that is something that he and I had discussed prior. And prior to doing this, when we were originally talking about a $1 million project and doing two different roads. So anyway, I suggested he could include it, and we'd have that as at least information. Subsequently, once I learned the first also had submitted a bid, I also inquired of them if they were going to offer that same, if they could match that possible offer, and so they can. So anyway, DB&T's offer here is for a 7-year term, 2.99%, for a 10-year term, 3.27%. The drawdown line of credit is at a rate of 2.99 for a term up to 6 months. So what does that really mean? So just in terms of what are we talking about for a bond if we were to borrow the full $2 million? So for the 7-year term for DB&T, the first year cost would be $346,000. For the 10-year term, that amount is $266,000. Now there's $308.34, but at least gives you an idea of what that means in terms of raw dollars. So we also received, again, that offer from the first. They offered a 7-year term at 1.73% and a 10-year term at 1.92%. So again, to get an idea of what that impact would be for the town of Newcastle, the first year of a 10-year term would be $230,409, and for a 7-year term, that amount is $313,433. So the low bid is clearly the first. Is assuming that everything works in terms of timing, and again, as I said, they would match the drawdown option.
Okay, thank you very much, John. So I think at this point, the big question before us is whether we want to discuss accepting one of these two bids before us, or if we should go back out. With all the financial uncertainty that's happening in the economy right now, I guess I believe I'll just throw my 2 cents and then I'll ask for opinions. I think that we should probably put it out again. And the reason I think that is because we first put the RFP out before all this madness started. And a lot has changed and continues to change every day. The one thing that has changed potentially in Newcastle's favor is that interest rates are plummeting, money's getting cheaper, more available. And I think, we owe it to ourselves to find the very best rate we possibly can. Now, whether or not we're going to find a better rate or not, I don't know. But I am virtually 100% certain we're not going to find a higher rate if we go back out. And I could be wrong, but I think I'd like to start the discussion right there. Anybody want to throw in? Brian?
I don't know if we're going to beat 1.92%, even with today's economy. I don't know if the banks can actually go lower than that. How do you get better than 2%? You know? If we go back out and we wait another 30 days, it could bite us like other things have done when we've done that. So, yeah, I think 1.92, 1.73 are really good numbers. You know, if we get to 1.5, is it a big enough savings?
I can't do that math in my head.
No, me either. So, John's got it. I can see
John's got the calculator. All right. So, all right, that's Brian for. Let's stick with what we got. Joel, Wanda, either of you have an opinion about what we should do? Wanda?
I don't know, but I kind of like Brian. I mean, I think, 1.73. I mean, we talked about, I think, looking at John's notes and stuff, we talked about the 7 years. I mean, that's pretty good. Can we do better? I think we have to do the best we can for the people of Newcastle. I mean, I don't know if we can do better or not. That's pretty good, but so I'm kind of on the fence whether we throw it back out there. I don't think we can wait too long though to get an answer, because obviously if it's going to start soon, we have to have an answer. So.
Okay. Joel?
Yeah, no, I kind of, my initial thought when I heard the interest rates were reduced to 0 was that maybe we could get an even better rate. But again, I don't know. I mean, if we could get 1% or something like that, it would be, or 1.25%, that would be huge. But I don't know. I mean, these do look pretty good. I mean, they're quite a bit better than the other rate we got by a whole percentage point. So, but I don't know. Yeah, no, I mean, it would be worth it if we could save 0.5% or whatever, I suppose. But I don't know.
Yeah, John, you all set, Joel, for a sec?
Yeah.
Not me.
Right.
Not me.
You had your hand up. I saw your hand up.
I'm testing what the delay is in between something bad happening and it going out to YouTube, to be honest with you. So that's what I'm doing.
I don't even want to know. I don't even want to know. So, all right, hold on. Let me get Brian in here just a second. Yeah, Brian, go for it.
So maybe we can just call the first and DB&T and see if the rates are reduced today or not. Instead of going back out for an RFP, that could be a quick phone call John can make tomorrow if they can do better or not. And then we'll know.
That's true. I guess the one other thought I had was, time is being uncertain and everything. We're not in a horrible position financially, and it's not honestly like it's going to be a problem or take long to get the money. Whoever we go to and decide, yeah, we want the money from you, they're going to say, great, it's not going to take long to get the money, and we've got money in the bank to get the project started. If we thought that there was any reasonable possibility that delaying by a month or even 2 months would see rates fall enough that it might make sense, that's, I think, really the conversation, because it's not like we need to, write a $2 million check in 30 days. So yeah, Joel.
So I'd just say that, I mean, as far as banks are concerned, we are a pretty safe bet. They kind of like dealing with towns, and we have a good financial, we're in a good financial place right now. So we're a safe bet. I mean, I guess I kind of think maybe I kind of agree with Brian that it would be nice just to secure this and get this done, and so that we're not pushing it down the road. But a phone call could perhaps let us know. And again, even saving a 0.25%, you know, would be awesome. You know, that's a big win. And then we're going along, and, you know, they're part of both these banks are local and they're part of the community. And so I don't want to.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I guess another, it sounds to me, and just correct me if I'm wrong, that we're not planning tonight to award a bid. If we were planning to award a bid tonight, I'd say the conversation is very different. If we're thinking that we're going to be either, you know, awarding the bid at our next meeting, then having some time to make a phone call and just some inquiries, or, you know, see where the rates go or whatever, even in a 2-week period, maybe that's worth something or not. So what does everyone think about that? Was anyone thinking we were awarding a bid tonight? Wanda?
No, and I think truly that a phone call may be a big help, because I think interest rates have probably dropped as low as they can. I mean, if you're already looking at 1.37, you know, they basically dropped into nothing already, so they're not going to drop much lower. So I would think whatever we could get going forward in the next week or two is probably the best we're going to get anyway. And maybe we will get a little better than what we have. It's certainly not going to be worse, because interest rates have dropped since we got these bids. So
Right.
we're not going to be any worse off.
Right. John, let me get you. Go for it.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, the only concern I would have is that if we wait 2 weeks, let's say I make a phone call tomorrow, I'll talk with Sarah Tolman and Ken Steele at their various banks, and say, you know, this is what we're talking about, and obviously things have changed and so forth. If I come back to you in 2 weeks and you say, well, I'm not happy with that result or what have you, or we should put it back out, now we're out 6 weeks from now, if you know, in terms of the timing. So that's the only concern I would have, in terms of if we did have to go back out and weren't happy with the result that we got from that conversation, you know, you may be out further. And if we're talking about a mid-May start, you know, that's actually, you know, right before the start of construction. So we may see some bills well before that happens, you know, delivery of concrete and all that.
Okay. Joel, go for it.
So if we did wait 2 weeks to award the bid, both these offers are still good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, like I said, I think maybe just the conversation would be the prudent way to go forward, and just sort of see, and then rather than scouring the planet trying to save a 0.25%, if that, you know, if things aren't moving from where they are right now, then I would say in 2 weeks I'd be fine with awarding a bid. So, and just get going on it.
All right. So it looks like we have broad consensus that we're gonna put the bid awarding process onto the next selectmen's meeting, which I'm gonna pull up my calendar real quick just so that I make sure is actually not in 2 weeks, it's in 3 weeks. Is that correct? Yes, it's in 3 weeks, on the 13th of April. Does that change our thinking at all, or is 3 weeks still going to be okay, right? John? You're looking at the bid documents and they're still good for that date?
Yep.
Okay, all right. All right, then without objection, I say we're going to go right ahead and put that onto next selectmen's meeting. Joel?
If we did have to move quicker, we could call a meeting before that on another Monday too. So
Absolutely.
I would just say that would be the way to go for it.
Great. Okay. Are there any other comments, questions, thoughts about the borrowing aspect of the Academy Hill project and getting that process going that we need to discuss? Are we good? Moving right along. So I know we've all had a lot of discussions about the coronavirus and what we're going to do about it. John and I have had some discussions, and maybe John, you wrote some stuff to us in your town administrator report, and maybe you could just sort of give us some thoughts on town stuff, office stuff, kick us off and we'll take it away from there.
Okay. Yeah, this is wild. I mean, obviously there's a lot of things I thought I'd be working on at this time of year. Spend a lot more time on budget, spend a lot more time on, preparing for the Academy Hill project, and now we're on other things. So I outlined in my report what's been going on, which obviously we've gotten a lot of work done in the last week since we met a week ago Friday. So I think that we've made a lot of strides in a number of projects that we really wouldn't have been able to otherwise, which is great. But we're still confronting this issue, and it's seemingly not getting better. It's probably going to get worse. So, I think that we've taken strides in the last week to try to allow us to be a little bit more independent of requiring us to be present, to allow us to do a lot more remotely. Brian spent a lot of time hand holding and also doing some of the work himself, and trying to get a new firewall in so we can kind of get to it remotely. Still working on that voicemail, the email stuff, but there's a lot of projects that we're now able to do somewhat remotely. But today we had an assessor's agent, we had the clerk, we had 2 deputy clerks, and myself. We had 5 people in the office. Again, not having the public come in, but that's just becoming a growing concern, and we're not supposed to keep smaller than 10 people, and we're all giving all the perfect social distancing we can. It becomes a situation where I think that if we can get the job done without that necessity of being present, all at the same time, I think it's a worthwhile situation. Other town offices in the area have similarly closed down. They're not working. They don't have staff working behind the scenes, either at all, or they're coming in shifts. The town of Damascotta shut down for a few days, and now they're working in shifts where one person's working a day. I think that it's something I think, unfortunately, we're going to have to look at. The sheltering in place is getting closer and closer. State of Massachusetts, or the Commonwealth of Massachusetts today, said that they were going to institute a shelter in place order for their residents. I don't know how far away we are from something like that, but I think we need to, if we're not going to take those, if the state isn't going to take those steps, it's something that we should probably consider, probably as a town office for our employees' sake. So that's the primary. There's other things that we're also working on, and I've talked today. Michelle was back, so Michelle, Harriet and Shelley and I have been talking a little bit about what projects can be done, at home, and taking laptops and setting up Zoom so we can still work together and collaborate. Set up, email on Shelley's home laptop so she can check her email. There's still a desire for everyone to perhaps come in and get their work, or check mail, or process tax receipts, and check voicemails if we can't get the email thing going. But I think as a matter of somewhat regular course of working that 7 to 4 with the lunch, or 8 to 4, or whatever that that work week has been last week, even with the doors closed, I think it may be time for us to consider something a little bit different.
So the thought would be to move to a situation where only one employee in the town office at a time for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, if possible.
If possible, and that would be the safest. And you're probably the most sort of set up to work remotely, but there is still need to have someone in the office, one person at least in the office every day, checking mail, checking the phone messages, because again, we still don't have that link working. And then there'll be a bunch of sort of getting back to people, but there is work that can be done remotely. So I think that's probably, honestly, I mean, we should open it up for discussion at this point for anyone else who has any thoughts. But I guess I would just say that I support your recommendation that at least for now we follow the other towns in our area, and we just close the office to everyone except one employee at a time, and and you just coordinate amongst yourselves about who's going in and doing what on any given day. And we just sort of let you run with that football. Does anyone have anything they want to say or add to the conversation? Joel, just a sec.
Yeah,
Go for
I think that's a good idea. I mean, the idea of, you know, how small our town office is, and if one person gets sick and they all get sick, then we have a real problem. So spreading things out and just maybe figuring out a way, a protocol, something to do, even just wiping down certain surfaces before each person leaves would be a good place to start as well. Because again, everyone's bringing in whatever from wherever they just came from, and that's all it takes. So I think setting something up like that, again, I don't think it's a good idea to hire an extra service right now, because it's yet one other person you're bringing into the whole mix. But if we just had some protocol to follow and some sanitizer and rags and areas that should be hit and cleaned after everyone was in the office, would be the best way to prevent any kind of spread. So,
Brian, Wanda, hold on a second. Go for it.
So I just know on the news tonight, Bangor, even though that's not the hardest hit area right now, they're having these discussions about kind of locking down their city. So I think, you know, my kind of new, you know, motto is, you know, I'd rather be criticized for doing too much than crucified for not doing enough. And I think, you know, we can't be too safe. A week or two may make a big difference, but I think the more we do now, the more we prevent you, you know, eventually, hopefully prevent this from spreading. So it's working in healthcare. We've, you know, I feel good because things that we've put in place, you know, other places are just putting into place now. We can look back and say, wow, we've been doing that. Feels good. Feels good to be on the right side. Are we still doing enough? Who knows? But we're doing what we can. And I think everywhere, you know, I think the town office needs to do that too. So.
Okay. All right. Brian, hold on.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm gonna say I agree with them. I think one person in the office at a time, as long as we can get work done while they're in there.
Mm-hmm.
I know Harriet's our newest. I'm not sure what she can do by herself, but I'm sure Michelle and Shelly are fine. So.
Okay. All right. So do y'all feel like we need to take an official action on this, or are we just good enough to say that we're going to let our town manager elect take care of it? Yes? I think that's what we're going to do. You good, John? Hold on.
I'm good. Thank you.
So you will coordinate the troops and just you run with the football, like I said, and just keep us up to date. But I think at least our part of supporting you and the town office staff is that we're just not going to show up. We're just going to not come to the town office. You can reach us on text. You can reach us on the phone. You can reach us on email if you need anything, obviously. And this Zoom actually seems to be working pretty good. So if we need to call meetings or whatnot, you just let us know. And otherwise, keep everybody safe and healthy. And like Wanda said, we just rather be safe now and be criticized, whatever. You said it very eloquently, Wanda. I want to repeat that. That's my new motto. I love it. All right. So I think unless there's any other concerns about coronavirus response or anything that we need to talk about or we haven't talked about, if there's anything else that we think we can do, I know that I, for one, am very frustrated that there isn't more that we can do. But until we get sort of more information from on high, I think we're kind of doing what we can do. If anyone hears of anything, please, pass it on to John. John will distribute and we'll go from there. Hold on just a second. Yes, John.
Do you, in terms of just broadly talking about the COVID response, this is probably a good time because people are watching, because, why wouldn't you watch this on YouTube? The fact of, first of all, legislature voted to allow this type of meeting to occur. So we can do electronic meetings now in a way we never were able to before during this emergency period. So I would say this will become possibly more prevalent. Not knowing how long this could go on, we could see other boards have to do this same thing. I see Tor's watching. Perhaps design review may need to do this. I'm not sure if that's going to work, but we'll do our best. Planning boards. I mean, it's going to spread. So in terms of the use of this, I mean, there's that. There's also a provision that allows towns to spend beyond the end of their fiscal year. So if, for example, we're still in this emergency period and we can't hold a town meeting because that would require us to have, more than 10 people congregating in the same place at the same time, that would allow us to spend in those existing budget lines for that beyond the July 1st date, which would be, or the new fiscal year. And then until such time that emergency ends, we would then have to hold a special town meeting somewhere within that next 30 days. So there's a lot still unknown. We really have until probably the middle of March to finalize a budget, put a warrant together, and have that voted on by the voters to discuss, kind of that next steps. Having said that, I'm still working on the budget, and I'm hoping to have the budget for you next time because I just got the good stuff from a road commissioner, so I can plug that in now.
You mean April? You said March, but you mean
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, April. Yeah. So, so I would hope to have some conversations at that time, but there is, we're going to we may very soon, whether it's probably not your next meeting, but maybe the meeting after, we may have to have some votes in terms of whether or not, how far we can go into May or late April without knowing when town meeting would have to be. And unfortunately, with as fast as all this COVID-19 stuff is hitting all of us, every day changes everything dramatically. So it's going to be a real challenge for the five of you to make that call. And the election's the same thing. So, we also have that's, voting on selectmen, anyway, all of this is really in the air. And so there'll be just some decisions in terms of how much you can go forward with, how much you can't go forward with, what's the timing, what's the method of voting. Brian and I were talking the other day about, this vote by mail something, is that a possibility? We can do more absentee ballots. There's a lot of options, and we all have to think a little bit differently. Possibly the legislature gets together again and changes some laws regarding, how to vote. So everything is moving so fast that, just be prepared and understand that, we're just going to be nimble. And as I appreciate your willingness to do something different like this, and hopefully it works out for, it's only a short term that we have to do this sort of thing, but it's going to be, I think, a very different budget process. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. It's going to really be a big difference in terms of how we've operated in the past.
So yesterday, playing around with Zoom's capabilities, I actually am kind of excited to try doing the budget over Zoom because of how you can share files and you can do like whiteboards, and I actually think it could work quite well. We'd want to play around with it, I think, a little bit before we sort of just rolled it out. But I think we could do it. I think this platform has got a lot of capabilities, more than I sort of knew that it had. So, all right, that's great. I think the one last thing that we need to talk about under unfinished business in regards to the COVID-19 response and this decision of closing the office or having just one employee work is really you've hit on budget, you've hit on elections, but payroll is the big one. And I'd like to recommend that, and if we need to take an action, we'll take an action, but I'd like to recommend that maybe we do take an official action to just keep payroll rolling at this point. We don't know what any of the state and federal, response is going to be in terms of, supporting towns and municipalities for this type of situation. But whereas it is an emergency, I just can't in good conscience recommend that we stop paying our employees at this time. it's budgeted, it's, you know, it's there, it's a regular expense. And there's a possibility that not only those employees, but the towns may receive FEMA funds or something later on down the line when all of this sort of gets sorted out. I'm going to let you in here, Wanda. Go for it.
No, I was just gonna say, whatever we do, when people are getting paid and not particularly at work or whatever, for hours that maybe they didn't truly work, you're just gonna document the heck out of it. John's gonna have to have a flow sheet and document it, because that's the only way. We're doing that at work now, that if people are sent home because, you know, we think they might have something that might be positive or they're being tested. Luckily, we don't have that now, but if we do, there's forms that need to be filled out, because the only way we're going to get reimbursed is if we have it really documented. So cross all the T's, dot all the I's, and we might, in the end of this, be able to recoup some of that money.
That's a really good point. How do you, while I got you on mute here, how do you feel about the, I guess I'll just open it up for discussion. How do you feel about the general, just keeping the payroll rolling at the 40-hour rate for now, and just as normal payroll gets processed? I think Michelle does it with the payroll company. Is that correct, John? You there? John, you there?
Hi,
Hi.
yeah, what's up?
Michelle
What was
just
the question?
Michelle just processes the payroll every pay period with the payroll company.
Oh, yeah, Monday morning. So it gets processed every Monday morning, and all the hourly employees fill out their timesheets and hand them in on Friday, and they're processed early Monday morning, and away you go. It's pretty easy. And we use that payroll company we've been using, so it's she could do it from home if she wanted to.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's make it official, and then we can talk about it a little bit more. Do we have a motion to just continue payroll through until the COVID-19 emergency is declared over, regardless of how many hours our employees actually work? Do we have a motion on that? I saw Joel first. Do we have a second? Brian, second. All right. Any further discussion about payroll continuing? All right. I'm going to do a roll call, so I'm opening it up. All right. Brian, how do you vote?
Yes. Yes.
Wanda, how do you vote?
Yes.
Joel, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So Harriet, that passes 4-0. All right, thank you, everybody. I'm going to put us all back onto mute. Yes. And we're going to move on to number 8, the town administrator report and communications. Everybody read that. John, I'm going to unmute you. Do you have anything to add?
The biggest thing was just the COVID-19 stuff and the response of what we had last week. The one thing I would add is that we're really working really hard to try to get information from folks. So if people are watching this, use the town's website. There's a contact us section of the website. Please provide us your phone number, a good phone number to reach you, and your email address. And the reason for that is that we obviously just sent a postcard out to let people know about the April 1st deadline for taxes, which unfortunately went out before we could pull it, to update it with the new due date for the second payment, which is June 1st. Had we had a better opportunity or better information to contact individuals, we could save a little bit of money by using phone, using text, using email, whatever methods we can to try to reach folks. So I would just urge folks, if they're watching or if they're familiar, make sure that we have your current information. Use that contact us little link on there. If you can provide your name and address and all that. We do not sell this. This is not, a commercial entity. This is really so we can reach out to you. With people having, cell phones and the like, the idea of looking in the phone book and trying to find someone's phone number is just impossible. So that's the one thing we've been working on really hard. Harriet and Shelley last week, everyone who called and had questions or concerns, we tried to steer them back to, hey, we need your information because we want to make sure we can be in touch with you if something were to happen or there's a problem with a payment or who knows. So we really want to push that out there. Secondly, the postcard, we are working on that second postcard. We just got the proof this afternoon. So that will also go out talking about the June 1st tax date. So that's a big piece, of the puzzle. The last thing I want to talk about is the single-use plastic ordinance. You may remember we approved this ordinance, I think 2 Novembers ago. There's a provision in it that allows the town administrator in Newcastle to waive effectively the use of that ordinance in an emergency situation. The town of Damascotta last week did that same thing. I'm going to choose to use that same provision here. Not that necessarily anyone's going to go out and start stocking their store with plastic bags over this situation, but that's just one more way that we certainly want fewer things that are reused and touched if we can. So, for an emergency situation, it seems to be a very worthwhile endeavor. The other piece is that we may want to look at full of removing or abolishing, I suppose, that ordinance since the state law went into effect or will be going into effect, which will ban state plastics, single-use plastics statewide. So that may be something to look at on a future level. But other than that, there's a lot going on, and obviously, and unfortunately, I think it's probably difficult for the 5 of you because there isn't a lot that necessarily, it can feel like you're not doing a lot. But I appreciate certainly the check-ins and the whatnot because that is helpful to at least make sure that I'm not going crazy as all these things go on. But it's there is so much that's really administratively heavy. It's just not prime time for boards of selectmen. It's really prime time for administrators and managers, probably more so. And just to know that the 5 of you are kind of in our corner and supporting the employees it makes it a whole lot easier. Because there's some hard conversations going on in small businesses all around the country right now. What's going to happen? Who's going to get paid? How are they going to get paid? And though you took the steps to secure our employees' futures and not worry about those things, I don't think any of them were concerned because they do feel they have a lot of support from the board and from the town itself. People who come in and really support our employees. So that's a great thing. And also, on top of that, I'd say the vast majority of people who have called and have questions have been very respectful and very understanding about what we're all dealing with, and had a great attitude about that. And so that's that kind of community spirit that is really helpful in these times. So let's just keep it going. Everyone, let's try to keep this going and try to keep looking after each other and try to be safe. So hopefully we don't know how long it's going to last, but just got to keep our head down and keep working, I guess.
Great. Thank you, John. Does anyone have any questions about any of the items on the report from the town administrator? We all good? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to the abatement, which I see that we have here 10.1, an abatement for Lincoln Academy, but I don't think I saw the paperwork.
Oh, yeah, it didn't. Oh, hang on. Let me just see if I have it right here. Because I think it didn't get attached. But we can just pass over this for a couple more weeks. It's not critical to do it. This is the first time after the expiration of the actual abatement request, I suppose, from Lincoln Academy, and its approval from the folks there. You know what I could do, Ben?
You could share the screen. You could
I
share
could
the
share this.
file.
This could happen, folks. This is big time stuff here. Hang on here. This is gonna happen. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's see. I think this is it. You ready? Here we go. That's it.
It's just too cool. That is too cool.
Technology, baby. Amazing.
All right. And without objection, I'm going to deem the abatement read and ask for a motion to approve. Brian moves. Do we have a second? Joel seconds. All right. Is there any discussion about the abatement? I just want to clarify it's in the amount of $13,011.51 for the 19 tax year. All right, Brian, hold on. Let me get you there. Yeah, go ahead.
So can we sign by proxy?
Oh, great question. John? how does this work?
Well, I got to work on that DocuSign type, something that will allow you to sign electronically. Right now, I think we're just going to have a pile of these things lined up where signatures like the warrants will have to go on top of them. But I'm not sure how else we're going to get signatures. So I'm not sure, but I think if we can at least improve in the minutes, and then we'll have a signing party when all of this craziness is over, perhaps. Just make sure your hands don't get cramped up from all the signatures.
All right, good enough for now, since that's probably the best we're gonna get. So, all right, so I'm gonna do a roll call. You can close that document there, John. Awesome, thank you. All right, I'm gonna open it up again, unmute all, and I'm gonna do a roll call on the abatement. Brian, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wanda,
Yes.
Joel.
Yes.
I also vote yes. So Harriet, that passes 4-0. All right, so moving on. Actually, moving on, we have an executive session. So this actually brings us to the end of our, hold on just a second. Yes, John, go right ahead.
The warrant. Did you do the warrant?
Totally skipped the warrant. Let me go back and do that. Thank
There we
you.
go.
All right, so we have a town warrant for $208,070.15. Do we have a motion to approve? Joel and Brian seconds. Do we have any discussion about the warrant? Questions, comments? No? Seeing none, I'm going to open it back up. Brian, how do you vote?
Yes. You want to give the dollar amount though?
Yeah, $208,070.15. Wanda, how do you vote?
Yes.
Joel, how do you vote?
Yes.
I also vote yes. This is a very weird way of voting, I gotta say. It's just very strange. I don't like it.
Can
All
we say
right.
aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Too funny. All right, I'm gonna mute it all again here.
Thank
And
you.
actually, I'm gonna leave it open for a second because we are going to close the meeting. We're gonna adjourn in just a second, and then we're gonna go into executive session. And the way that that's gonna happen is John's gonna close this meeting. You're gonna take just a minute and email us all another link that we will then click on that link to go into this meeting, which will not be open to the public. And that's how we're gonna do our executive session. So do we have a motion to adjourn this public meeting? Brian moves, Wanda seconds, all in favor. I'm gonna just take a show of hands.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you all for coming. Good to see you, Tor. Take it easy, Evan and Harriet. Have a great night.
See you guys.
Bye.